Okay. All right. Hi, everybody. We're back again, having another discussion about something really important. And I thought it'd be really interesting to have a look at resilience and coherence through a different lens today. And I wanted to introduce you to one of my amazing friends from high school, Jessica Canham, who was living in London at the time and now is living in Dominica in the Caribbean. Jess and I met in 1988 when we were teenagers, and we were involved with an organization called the OSSSA, which was kind of like a student body government thing. And we used to run conferences at different high schools and do leadership training for kids and stuff like that. It was such a fantastic time. And it was a really amazing growing time, I think, for all of us. And I think it's quite remarkable that there's quite a few of us that are still very, very close friends, even far too many years on. So I'm just going to swap over to a different screen for a minute so we can share screens. So bear with me a second. Because Jess is going to share some pictures along with her story about where they've begun. And we're going to talk mostly about building resilience and bringing coherence into things and things that help people get into that stage. Because I think resilience is kind of one of those terms where you think about what does that mean? And for us, the HeartMath definition would be that it's a capacity, and it's having a capacity within yourself to kind of deal with stress, to prepare for stresses that are coming, to adapt to different environments and challenges as they happen. And whatever other adversity happens alongside that. And one of the key ways we do that is by teaching coherence. And that is bringing your mind, body, and spirit together and having all those physiological systems work together to support you through whatever challenge you're facing. So we're going to have a discussion about Hurricane Maria, and starting with Jess and her home ground where she is now. Okay, so I'm just going to flip over there. There we go. All right, Jess.
All right. Greetings from Dominica. This is an aerial view of our property, Capy Cottage Retreats. We are in the mountains of Dominica at 1,500 feet above sea level. And we have the rainforest behind us, the national park, which is a World Heritage Site. Mont Tropiton National Park is on our boundary. And we look towards the Caribbean Sea. So Dominica, for those who don't know, is an English-speaking island. We're not the Dominican Republic. We are in between Martinique and Guadeloupe in the Eastern Caribbean. And it's really a tiny island. We just have 65,000 people. It's about 46 kilometers long, but it's almost all interior rainforest. We're one of the last islands to still have intact oceanic rainforest. So it is a very special place. I'm Dominican Canadian. And my partner, Tim, is Dominican Canadian, and we came here after other adventures in India and places 25 years ago. So we built this space, which has now become a retreat center where we host transformational retreats, student groups. Students from the US and Canada come to do their field work in environmental science, geology, service work as well, working with local farmers. This is a shot of that. And for the last 4 years, we've been hosting groups from around North America and also local groups, wellness retreats, yoga, plant medicine. And we also host researchers, people who are coming down to study the rainforest, and especially after Hurricane Maria, to study the aftermath of a hurricane on an island. So we've been very fortunate to be able to, this is our outdoor-indoor classroom, where students we're learning
it's like a
about
dream class.
the island and sharing their learning and teaching, doing some field work here. So we have some great relationships with universities like the University of Toronto, Clemson University in North Carolina. The University of Florida actually was supposed to come just before Maria, or just before the pandemic shut down. So more on that. But it's been quite an adventure. And I will say that none of this was anything that was planned. It all really unfolded. Here's a shot. We also have a video production company called Link International. There's a shot from a few years ago where we were filming live the World Creole Music Festival in Dominica. And we've shot many documentaries locally and in the region. on arts and culture and education. So we've done a lot of different things in the last 25 years. We also have an Airbnb that we rent out to people from all over the world who want to experience Dominica. And it's been just an adventure and a joy, I have to say. I never would have imagined back in 1988 that I would be living on an island, you know, many years later. And it's just, yeah, it has been an incredible adventure.
Yeah, it's an outstanding place, even though it takes us a little while to get there from the UK, but it is a remarkable place. So shall we jump into the story about Maria then?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
So
I will say, when we talk about Maria, it's really a story about recovering from a trauma, from a crisis, from devastation. And it's going to feed into our discussion on resilience, because I really feel like building resilience is not sort of about having a trauma or a crisis and going back to where you were before the crisis, but it's really cultivating within yourself a new strength or a new capability, and to discover something new about yourself and move into a new type of life, where you have new strengths and capabilities to be stronger and to be more adaptable. So our big lesson on resilience started with this image, Hurricane Maria, on September 18th, 2017. 2017. This is 3.5 years ago. This was a Category 5 hurricane, which grew from a Category 1 to Category 5 in about 24 hours. One of the strongest hurricanes ever recorded in the Atlantic Ocean. And it devastated the island. We're talking about 90% of all the roofs on all the buildings were destroyed. Almost all the agriculture was destroyed. We had no electricity. Water systems were destroyed or disabled. Over 60 people died. Many missing that never were recovered. It was an absolutely, totally devastating event. We were on the front page news in Canada and places around the world that had never heard of us before. It was one of the most strongest hurricanes ever. And of course, it was fueled by warmer waters, due to climate change. That the speed of the development of this hurricane was just really unprecedented. Most people heard about Hurricane Maria going through Puerto Rico, because Puerto Rico is part of the US, gets more attention. But it hit us first as a Category 5. So there you see, this is a street in Roseau, in the capital city. It's filled with trees with absolutely no bark on them, because what had happened was Roseau is on a river, and the river just became a raging torrent and brought down all of the debris from the interior, all the trees, logs. So we literally had a sea of logs in the capital. People just couldn't believe it. It's one of those kind of apocalyptic events, right out of the Bible. Biblical images all over the island. You can flip through these, but it was a case of, there was just, this is a shot of the forest interior, where every branch, every leaf, all the bark was just stripped off of trees. And you just had these sticks standing up. A lot of people who came to help in the relief effort described it like a war zone, like what you would expect after a war zone, after explosions have gone off. And literally have, just mass devastation. But this is a natural event, right? There was no war. This was nature. This was the power of nature. So it was, we all were wondering, how are we ever going to recover from this? Because it was such total devastation, where we didn't have food, for example. Everything was on the ground. All the crops were destroyed. We had food for maybe a couple of weeks, and then everything had rotten. Mm-hmm. So luckily, the international community responded very, very well. And so rations came in from all over the world. Support came in. Our family was incredibly supportive. We started fundraising right away. We had a friend come over from Martinique on the boat with food, and the community one of the advantages of living on a small island is there's still a real sense of community. Everybody knows everybody. So immediately everybody's checking up on people, helping people put roofs back on. In Cochrane, which is the village where we're based, we had our water restored in 2 days. We've got a lot of skilled people, plumbers, masons, carpenters. So people really rallied around and just did the basics to really shore up people's homes and facilities so that we could actually clear the roads ourselves, get to town, make emergency phone calls. And it was, I was actually just stunned by how well our community came together in this emergency.
Yeah, it's quite remarkable, isn't it? Because there's destruction in there. People just aren't used to seeing that level of experiencing that level of devastation.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
No, yeah, no, if you haven't lived through, I've lived through hurricanes and storms before, but not on this scale. Yeah. So when all the infrastructure is down, when there's no electricity, there's, there was quite a lot of looting, unfortunately, that went on in the capital, but, basically all the stores are closed, everything's locked up. And you really have to depend on your community, your neighbors, sharing what little food you have, the things that were on the ground, like pumpkin and root crops. We were able to sustain, those were going to sustain people for quite a few weeks, that we had to depend on rations coming in to just stay alive. And it was like nothing I've ever lived through. And I wouldn't, it's just something that people see on television that happens far away, especially if you're in North America or Europe, these images of natural disasters. You just don't imagine, if you grew up in these places, that it would happen to you, that you'd be in the middle of it.
What was amazing about that time too, because we were kind of watching all these hurricanes happening at the time, just on the news and things, and thinking, oh yeah, it's category 1, category 2. But it was that literal, it was within that 24-hour period that it just hit so hard with no preparation and no warning that it was going to blow up from a 1 to a 5 in that 24-hour period. That I thought that was a huge thing, that people just weren't prepared at all for it.
Yes. We're surprised that not more people died, because people were expecting maybe a 1 or a 2. And so for that level, there's certain things you don't need to do if it's going to be that kind of a storm. But this storm was just unrelenting, and you couldn't be anywhere near any water. You had to have everything sealed. I mean, things were flying. People were sheltering in their bathtubs, in cupboards, in closets, where the house is falling down around you. Yeah. Just very terrifying, very traumatic. We were very lucky because we didn't have any major damage. Our roof didn't go. So we had a lot of environmental damage around the property, but we were able to, the house and the building stayed intact.
So you think about wind, like even here, the wind gets up to like 60 or 70 miles an hour, and you can like lean into it and it can hold you. But you're talking about winds of over 200 miles an hour that are just, you have no chance.
Yeah,
against something like
certainly,
that.
Absolutely. Sustained winds were 175 miles an hour with higher gusts. And a storm that size also spins off tornadoes. So there are a lot of tornadoes spinning off, which would be well over 200 miles an hour. And there's no defense against a tornado. So you really, it's something that's that's really devastating, just on every level.
Okay, so I'm going to share again for you there. So go back to this so you can see what the next step was. There we go.
So amazingly, Maryellen and the girls had their trip planned before this happened. And I was like, are you still going to come in March? I think it was March.
February.
Happened in September or February.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, we're going to come. And Abby and Holly, they've got supplies they want to bring down for the school. My daughter's school was half of it was destroyed. So there was no school for months and months. But it was amazing, Maryellen, to come down at that time and to just share. I mean, it's still a beautiful island, and nature was definitely recovering by then. And to have the girls bring down some supplies and experience the Dominican school, and that was fantastic.
Yeah, we did some fundraising in our practice for that, actually, because people brought in all kinds of different supplies. They donated some money so we could buy supplies to take down. So it was kind of a community effort on our part.
Yeah, no, it's a big deal. And I think it can't be understated. The donations that were received, the people that came, we had journalists, we hosted people who were, just very generous and giving and wanting to help in the recovery effort in any way, in any big or small way. So that was amazing. It was really wonderful. And that all really helps. And I was telling the students that because we had a student group come down after, just to know, for people locally to know that they're not forgotten, that they hadn't been wiped
Yeah.
off the face of the earth, that, we're still here and we are doing the best we can. And to have that validation from visitors is really amazing. We brought in little solar powered lamps for each family in Cochrane. This is a shot of a family, so that because we had no light in the village for months and months and months. So bringing anything in that could ease that time, that very dark time, we tried to participate with that. And we're shipping barrels from Toronto down, and also we had people flying in supplies from neighboring islands. So it was a huge effort to just recover materially at first.
Yeah. Safety, water, shelter, all the
That's
and
right.
food safety,
Right.
all the basics that you need just to kind of start your day, really.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. It's just, it really gets down to basic survival. There's a shot of some of the supplies that we brought in. Oh, people sailed in supplies as well. And we had donations from friends and family in Canada and across the Caribbean, other islands as well. And we were able to work closely with the village nurse. We're on the village council and the farmers group. So we really work closely with the community to find out what are the needs, what are the most immediate needs and in what quantities. And we're able to really help with that. And I think that one of the other things about, resilience, a number of people left, a lot of people left the island because they were feeling unsafe. They had family in overseas. And I think for me to make the choice to stay and help rebuild was a huge part of a psychological recovery. Being part of the community in the whole rebuilding effort was a big, I think, helped to mentally and psychologically recover from the trauma. And I know that some of my friends who left had a harder time in some ways, because they felt a little bit less able to contribute when you're not on the ground and working with the community and seeing that you have some agency and you can actually step by step make things better and step by step reclaim your life. And that's a process that I never would have imagined. I never had to go through before.
It's amazing, isn't it? And that's an incredibly powerful thing. And I think on so many levels with a devastation like that you need to have that capacity to move forward, to open your eyes, get up in the morning and recognize that actually by giving back and by contributing to the community, you are healing.
That's right.
And on some of the things that are going on here at the moment with the pandemic stuff, and we just did an interview about teen suicide and how kids start to recover from having the rug pulled out from under their feet, basically, very similar to this, having your whole life shifted in a way that you have no control over, and how to regain that sense of self and find the things that do lead you to healing, because it's not going to be the same thing for everybody. And it just is a step-by-step process of just being present with it and being okay that things aren't okay.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So I was thinking about what are the key lessons that I learned in the aftermath of disaster and trauma, which also could be applied to what we're going through now with the pandemic, because it is a trauma as well, and it is a crisis. I would say the number one thing that I learned that I think is critical is maintaining your health. For me, if I hadn't been able to maintain my health, my physical health and my mental health, I would not have been able to recover as fast or to be of service, to be of service to my family, my community. And so I had a daily practice of yoga and meditation before this, but I understood how important it was after this, just that being able to center yourself, being able to give time every day to your physical health, to your mental health, to calm the mind, to be able to deal with anxiety in a way that's a part of a daily practice. And then also the other issue with after trauma is the ability to sleep. I just could not sleep. For days and days, it was very hard to sleep. And if I was sleeping, it would only be a couple hours a day, because you're in this state of shock, and nothing is the same around you. It's almost like you're in a movie, because every day is kind of the same, and there's this feeling that time has stopped. And I think sometimes during the pandemic, we felt that way.
You've just described the whole last year, haven't you?
Yeah. The feeling that there's nothing is the same.
It's Groundhog Day.
Routine, all of your, nothing, all of the whole society is completely shifted just to survival mode. And so it's very hard to sleep. And sleep, if you don't get enough sleep, you can't think straight. And then the anxiety and the kind of mind, the mind going into spinning and spinning. So what I found in order to help me sleep was if I was exhausted physically at the end of the day, I could sleep. So, and of course there was so much work to do around the property. So whether it was clearing branches, cleaning, endless cleaning, fixing things, and just that physical effort, the body gets exhausted and then the mind quiets down. And so it was kind of a ritual for me to just be physically super active. And then I would be able to just, fall into sleep more easily. And then the other things, which are very understandable, just eating healthy, making sure you're having fresh fruits and vegetables every day. And then vitamin D, which is a big issue right now in the pandemic, because if you're in winter, you're not getting much vitamin D. We don't have to worry about that so much in the Caribbean. We're getting sun. It's just pouring down on us all day, every day. So being outside and eating well, that's a major for staying healthy.
Those are huge things. And they're such simple things, actually. But it does take a commitment to put yourself first and make sure that you are okay, so that you can be of service to the people around you, whether it's your children, whether it's your family, whether it's the people that you're working with, or the community that you're living in. Especially with the pandemic going on right now, people are struggling on so many different levels. And it is being able to kind of balance all these different things that are happening and make sense of them. And sometimes they just don't make sense. And being okay that sometimes things just don't make sense, but I still need to withdraw and make sure that I'm looking after myself the best way I can, so that I am managing my stress levels, so that I can have the capacity or the resilience building over that period of time to last through this, because we don't have a timeline at the moment. And then to be able to be present for other people who might need more advice or support, a hug, a smiley face, anything, so, and kindness, having kindness and compassion for people, because so many people are going through so many different things and having different experiences. And it's just, again, being open to that and recognizing that some people are really struggling at the moment, and that's okay too, just to be present for them and to recognize that that's the case.
Yes, absolutely. I would say the second right after health is community. Making sure who your community is, you're connected to a community, you're not going through this alone. We're very fortunate because we already had community organizations established and functional, the farmers group, the village council. So we had meetings regularly to talk about what things needed to happen and how we were going to work together. We started a young women's empowerment group as well a few months after, to connect with younger women, to do some mentoring, so that young women have a space to be able to talk about what they're going through. And especially a lot of young women were more at risk after a disaster because of, people's stress levels. There's more abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse in the home and communities as stress levels go up. So it's really important to identify people who may be vulnerable, and to find out ways to give support. So we have psychosocial support groups as well that are online now because of the pandemic. But we identify people who are vulnerable and pair them up with people who can just listen and be there.
Yes, and the art of listening. It's a gift.
Yeah, absolutely. But when you start to take the focus off yourself and, you know, what I have lost and all the things that I wanted to do this year and how much I'm suffering, and when you start to say, okay, what does this person need? How can I show up for that person? Then you really, the anxiety around your own issues is really lessened. So it is, it's not a selfless act to help others. It's actually, you know, mutually beneficial. It actually reinforces and helps with your own healing.
Yeah. And it
As you were
helps grow
saying.
your capacity. Again, going back to that resilience, and, you know, that capacity that you have is built with this, you know, by learning different experiences and engaging on different levels with different people, rather than locking yourself away in a room where actually you have no perspective and there's no shifting there. You're just kind of going around in a circle and around in a circle. So reaching out for those connections is really important, you know, and having a tribe around you that can reach in when you kind of, you know, fall off the wagon and need a bit of help. So
Yeah, absolutely. Right now I have a Zoom group, a women's group, some of the women who left after Maria and with also the women who stayed. We had a very close group before the hurricane. And after the pandemic hit in the lockdown, we actually regrouped, and we could do it now over Zoom because people are in Europe and Canada and other parts of the Caribbean. And we get together once a month. And that's a really important support group because we're all going through different things during this lockdown. And we can all kind of relate to each other because of what we did share when we were living on the same island. And it's, I find it, yeah, part of what keeps me sane in these, in these times.
Yeah. And the small things and those connections are so important, because it isn't big stuff that creates freedom, that freedom that you need inside yourself to be able to create that inside your headspace, you know, and then kind of extend that into the community and the tribe that you're engaging with, that you feel supported and you feel cared for, and vice versa, that you're able to support and care for others.
Right. What couple other things I wanted to mention just on that, lessons that were learned after Maria, was one of the other things that kept me sane was to focus on small achievable goals. You know, when you look out at the devastation and you're like, how are we ever going to recover? We had a business, we had people visiting, we had a tourism industry, we had agriculture, and everything is just devastated. So if you can think about, well, today I will plant yams, you know, and tomorrow I'll repaint this shutter. And these are little things, but they give you such a sense of accomplishment and just a sense of we can actually move forward, like little steps, and not these grand plans that we used to have, but just looking at the little things and actually finishing a small project. And then it just gives you a huge morale boost.
Yeah, all those small steps, because each one matters, because again, you're building this lovely, strong foundation to stand on with every single small step. And we talked about the other day about some of the teens that were struggling and saying, you know, some of them recognize that they need a routine, and before they didn't know that. So being able to get up, open the blinds, make a bed, have a shower, eat some breakfast, all those small steps to get them going, because they're doing school online, or some of us are just kind of teach yourself at the moment. So all of those things matter. Those small steps matter to get you in the right headspace to see that the day is going forward and you're walking with it, you know, instead of feeling like you're left behind. So,
yeah,
really important things.
Absolutely. And the one other thing I will say on that, on resilience, is being able to see the silver linings. You know, we so get caught up in focusing on everything we've lost, but to see like the little areas where, hey, there might be something possible here. One of the things we were, because we were off grid and we had our micro hydro unit, we were able to actually get our energy generation back up in about 3 months, 2 months after the hurricane. So then we were able to host people who would have actually gone somewhere else if we weren't up and running. And we actually went into a whole new area of work because of the storm. We actually had retreat centers that were down and were not rebuilt, and you know, their people came to us and said, can you host us? Can you make a space for our programs? And so that was the silver lining, you know, that we were able to take advantage of an opportunity of being able to rebuild quickly, get back up and going quickly. And I think that's also going to be true with the pandemic. You know, what are the silver linings in this
Yeah.
moment? It might be I'm working from home. I have more time to, you know, be with my kids, be with my partner, take up a new hobby, or, you know, what are those things that that we've gained because of this this crisis?
Yeah, there's so many opportunities to, I think, coming from that normal 9 to 5 workday, or the stress that you were under, and not spending enough time with kids and not spending enough time with families or social groups, which this year has been a massive thing that's been missing for a lot of people. And I think it's not the material things that people are missing. It is the connections. It is seeing their families and spending time with families. So it is an opportunity to do things differently. It's an opportunity to do retraining. It's an opportunity to consider doing something that you might not have thought about doing before for a lot of people, you know. So in some ways it's been very good for many families to do that. And I like that it's created a pause to allow that sort of thinking to happen, because again, for a lot of people, you're just going and going and going and going without ever considering something different. And, you know, for example, our swimming group started with like 30 members, and I think there's over 900 now.
Wow.
And obviously not swimming at the same time, but because of the safety aspect of cold water swimming, people kind of will check in online with whatever group they belong to and say, anybody swimming here today, anybody swimming there? And there'll be little groups of 2 or 3 people meeting up. And it's incredibly supportive, because that community aspect is being built, where you're getting out of the house, you're starting the day, you're refreshing your energy. You're meeting with a group of people that are feeling all the same stresses that you are, but your focus is on, let's get wet, let's create some joy, let's have some fun. And you come out of the water a different person than you go in, you know, which is a remarkable experience, actually. And people always go like, but it's so cold. I'm like, yes, but what you get out of that experience, you know, and you come up the beach and you're frozen and you get all dressed and you sit and you have a coffee and a quick chat with everybody, and everybody is starting the day in a completely different mind frame, even when they're struggling with things, you know. So, and there's some people that would just go down and it's too cold, that might get their toes wet, or just come down and have a quick cup of coffee, just to see people and just to experience that level of positivity again, and still bring that back into the home with them, and be ready to support their kids, ready to support their partner, or whatever else is going on for them in that day. And so the small things like that make a big difference, you know, whether it's swimming, whether it's walking, whether it's doing yoga, whether it's doing some meditation, you know, those things that bring back to who you are, and like, oh, I didn't realize I'd like that so much. I didn't realize how much I get out of this. Or I'm so glad that I have these tools that I just kind of took for granted, but I'm learning how to use them now, you know, which is a wonderful thing to experience. So it is building resilience. And I think, yeah, the open communication as well is a really big thing for people at the moment.
Yeah, I agree with all that. Absolutely.
So shall we show some inviting pictures?
Sure. Sure, that will, yeah, absolutely.
So make everybody jealous now. There we are.
Yeah, so this shot is of the island from the south, this point that's going out of Scott's Head. And it is in this bay, this area is a sunken volcanic crater. So it's actually a marine reserve in that horseshoe. So we have some of the best snorkeling and diving actually in the Caribbean. There's these wall dives. It's extremely deep in these areas. And it's wonderful for the coral reefs. Just this diversity of marine life is quite stunning. And then you see there's a little village of Scott's Head is on this after the, as you see it going up, and then it's really mountains. You're seeing both the Atlantic and the Caribbean Sea in this picture. And then it's
breathtaking
in the interior. Yeah, that's a great drone shot from the Discover Dominica Authority. And this is 3 years after Maria. So these shots, you'll see how much not just nature has recovered, but the infrastructure of the island has really recovered as well since that devastation. And it's quite remarkable. I mean, when you think about it, for a small island with really limited resources, you know, financial resources, I think we've done a remarkable job of rebuilding and recovering.
You think it's better now? Do you think that with that infrastructure having been wiped out,
Well,
do you think
definitely.
things have come back in a more efficient way? It's tied
Yeah,
community resources and connected communities on a different level?
I think, yeah, there was a definite purposeful intent to build back stronger. And so a lot of the roads and the bridges and the infrastructure, the hurricane shelters, some of the new housing is definitely more resilient, more to big storms. And people, because you go through something like this, you learn skills that you might not have thought you had before. Or just learn skills in terms of the next hurricane, because we know that's not going to be the only one, or the next
Yes.
crisis. And so what was remarkable, this is Fort Shirley in the north, which was a British fort. The British fought between the French for Dominica, many times French, many times British. And that was restored, beautifully restored by Lennox Honeychurch. It's one of the most intact forts in the Eastern Caribbean, one of the largest. All the original buildings, most of the original buildings were restored.
Wow.
And that's also the site of the jazz festival. That we have an annual jazz festival in the May holiday. And these are just stunning historical sites within the natural landscape. This is my favorite beach in Dominica. It's called Number One Beach. It's in the northeast. And it was also where one of the scenes from Pirates of the Caribbean was filmed with Johnny Depp running for his life from so-called natives. It was a really cheesy scene, but a beautiful beach nonetheless.
Yeah, it's breathtaking, isn't it?
And there's a beautiful river that runs out along. It's not in the shot. Beautiful fresh river that you can swim in. Most of our beaches, we're really lucky in the Northeast, have rivers running through them. So we get quite spoiled. We have the fresh water as well as the salt water.
There we go.
This is a shot of Roseau, the capital city.
It's all rebuilt. It's incredible, isn't it? Because when I was there, it was just devastation. It didn't look like this at all.
Yeah. You see the stadium in the foreground, and then going towards, that's a view towards the Caribbean Sea.
Yeah, it's breathtaking. The difference is astounding, actually.
Yeah, it really is. This is one of the many waterfalls, is Spanny Falls in the interior. It's not too far from here. It's about 20 minutes drive from here. We have one that's even closer called Middleham, which is the tallest waterfall in Dominica. And we say we have a waterfall or river for every day in Dominica. We have hundreds and hundreds of rivers and waterfalls. So you can almost, when you go to these sites, you're pretty much the only person there, which makes it very, very special. And you're totally surrounded by nature.
Yeah, it's beautiful, isn't it? And there's that one.
Yes. This is the Tito Gorge, which is again in the interior. It's a beautiful gorge with fresh water running through it. And there's a great trip. It's a canyoning trip that takes a few hours, and you can actually canyon your way, rappel on ropes and jump over waterfalls through the gorge.
I think everybody will be jealous now that you need to come. One of my favorite Dominica.
I always encourage people to do the canyoning trip if
it's beautiful. Yeah, it is a breathtaking island. And actually, even for me to see those pictures, it's really heartwarming, because when we were there, you were only a few months post hurricane. And so like we would drive up roads that were completely washed out up the mountains, and trees and electric wires, and all the houses that were destroyed and the roofs missing and all that kind of stuff. So seeing that picture it's pretty astounding how much, even just over 3 years, has been rebuilt, and beautifully rebuilt, actually. So yeah, it's really pretty. So yes, resilience and learning. So but yes.
And on another positive note about and how we've been able to handle the pandemic, we right now currently only have about 8 active cases in Dominica of COVID-19. And that's why we've been able to open up to tourism. People can come. We have really very rigorous protocols for entering and testing. And we've been able to, basically, we haven't had another lockdown since the first, global lockdown in March.
Yeah.
And we've, schools are open, everything's open. And it's, I think it's a testament also to just in a small community, you're able to do these things that are, everybody knows that they need to work towards the benefit of the health of everybody. And also we're an island, so we don't have international flights coming in every day. And
it makes a big difference, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, but it's interesting to see the difference, having gone through such enormous devastation and having been able to rebuild all those community links and that level of resilience, and then going through this to protect each other and to, again, withdraw into the community and really bring everybody together again, and not just on the community level, but on your individual level of what's going to help you have that resilience and build that resilience in yourself. And I think the maintaining health, your own personal health, is a huge one, and not just about the physical health, but mentally as well, being able to do things that support you to get through this. So yeah, those are really important things. So, yes. So is there anything else you'd like to add?
I guess we were going to talk a bit about dreams, and I would just say that I never saw this life for myself when I was growing up. As I said, in like 1988, I was a high school president, and I had an amazing childhood and teenagehood in the suburbs in London, Ontario. And I always thought, I'll probably have a house in the suburbs and, have maybe a teaching job somewhere. But it didn't work out that way. And why? We have to ask ourselves sometimes what dreams are, where they're coming from. Are they coming from your culture, how you were raised? And it's a really interesting thing when you can kind of move outside your comfort zone. You discover new things that you're interested in and new opportunities. And it was just a really organic process that I ended up here and ended up doing what we're doing. And things just unfolded. And I think it's because I, allowed myself to be surprised, allowed myself not to follow, a beaten path, and just, and also having a partner that was also very adventurous, was a huge asset. Yes. I couldn't have done this alone. So it's really a team effort. And it's just, I think that's the idea of staying open to the unknown is really compelling. And especially after a disaster or a trauma, it sort of gives you an opportunity to reflect back on your life and reflect back on what you're doing and why you're doing it. And maybe there's something deeper inside you that's calling you to open up to something new. And so I would say just to be open and to say yes to things that might not have been in your field of vision,
Take a risk.
Take a risk. And it's rarely have I been disappointed, when I have stepped outside my comfort zone and pushed myself into something new.
Yeah. Very, very true. And actually very sage advice for these times as well, as everybody is going through a ground shift in their own lives, with all the things that are happening at the moment on every level. So being open to whatever may come next, and being open to opportunities and drawing quite unexpectedly good opportunities to you. So right. Well, thank you, Jess, for sharing everything. That was fantastic. Thank you so much. So right, so there might be a part 2 where we have to go and travel. So
sure. And I was just going to come off my porch and show you.
Oh yes, please.
A little bit of let me change this of my view today.
Rub it in.
That's
oh, it's stunning.
And
and I'll have you know that pool is ice cold. It might be hot in Dominica, but the pool is freezing.
Yeah, well, 82 in the winter, goes up to 90 in the summer, that's where we put up our glamping tent cabins on those platforms. And there's a trampoline over there. We have a guest right now in the cottage, and that's the house.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
I can't wait to come back.
So yes, you're absolutely on the list of friends that we are waiting to come back and come for longer as well, because
Yes.
yeah, a few days is not long enough.
No, it wasn't. I don't know what I was thinking. Maybe we thought if we stay too long, we won't want to leave and then we'll be in trouble. So
Yeah, but we're just, yeah, it was so amazing that you came at that time, because we really,
yeah.
we really needed the boost, the morale boost. So
Yeah. No, it was a gift for us as well. It really was a wonderful experience.
yeah.
So.
Well, thank you for inviting me, Maryellen, on your podcast.
Thank you for sharing your expertise and your experiences and all the growth that you've experienced from all of that devastation into where you are, because obviously where you started with all the different retreats and the business that you built and having all of that devastated with that level of hurricane, and then having to rebuild from there. And it's a remarkable story, I think, and it applies so well to where we are right now as well. So, but thank you very much.
Yeah, lots of love, sister.
Thank you.